prodxena.
For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Zena. I'm a music producer and I produced the track for Take Me. I've been getting a lot of requests on how to do Screamo trap and just really aggressive type beats, and more specifically on how I approach doing my bass lines. So I'm going to be going over how I do that today. Alright, so this is the original file for Take Me. It was really simple. There's just a lot of details in it that I'll be going over with you guys today. So yeah, the first thing that we're going to do is start off with a fresh new project file. We're just going to start from scratch here. And what I have is I have these two pad sounds. I have a lead, a kick, an 808. I have a crash, closed hi-hats, a snare, and then I have an ARP, and then this like other random sound. So you don't need to have the same exact sounds that I do, just try to get them as close as you can. So yeah, I started off with this really cool chord progression. It's in F sharp minor. Alright, and so I'm just going to be going over with you guys how I did that. And an easy way is, just so it's easier for you guys, is I'm going to start off with showing you the notes. Alright, so this is just a reference to make it easier for you guys, just so that you know where the notes should be at. I don't normally do this just because I know where the notes, I have a really good like ear for things, so I know like what's off. But this is just like to kind of like show you guys where the notes should be at. So I'm just gonna copy this just like that as a reference. So that's where, when you make your chord progression, your notes should be here. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna go over how I did the Alright, so that is the whole chord progression, all in F sharp minor. What I'm going to do is delete these because we don't need them anymore. Alright, so I'm going to put this into our playlist just like this, and let's name this choir. And then the next thing that we're going to do is do an exact duplicate of this. So go to the corner, hit make unique. Then we're going to copy this chord progression into this other pad sound that I have, and then delete the old one and go to Control X, and that just deletes it. So now we have this pad sound, and I'm going to put this in octave high. Now I'm just going to put this here, and that is how it starts off. So it slowly builds up. And what I did is I put an automation on the cutoff frequency. So in Citrus comes with FL Studio. I think you guys should really take advantage of it, just because it does come with a lot of sounds. Plus, there's a lot of free Citrus presets packs that you can find, and I have found a lot of really cool sounds with those. But yeah, so I put a cutoff frequency here. So I just said create, right click, create automation clip, and then the frequencies gradually. So that's a way of adding drama, and you know me, I love adding drama to my music. So for the next one, it's going to be a lead, and and really simple. I added a cool effect in Fruity Love filter. But before I do that, let's highlight these 3 sounds that we've already used. We're going to go to our mixer here, go to insert 1, right click, and then channel routing, route selected channels to this track. So this is where mixing happens. And I always do a simple mix, and then I do everything in Pro Tools. But anyways, make sure you never want to have your sounds above 0 dB. You never want, because this is when things start clipping and it just turns into a mess. So make sure it never goes above 0 dB. So for the I went to Fruity Love filter, and I went to the this one preset. I don't know how you describe that, but it's yuck yuck or yuke yuke, whatever. It's X and Y morphing, and this is how it sounds like. It kind of distorts it and makes it sound more gritty, and I thought it kind of added texture to it. So there's that. That's the beginning. And then it drops right here. So there's a lot of elements that go into that, and I'm gonna just kind of go over it with you briefly. This is the ARP, and I used Sawyer for this, Sawyer, however you pronounce this, FG Trasher. And then what I did is I did a automation on the cutoff frequency. That's something that I do with a lot of sounds. I do automation clips on the cutoff. And then what I did here is for the breakdown, I just kind of played around with the sound with Gross Beat. Gross Beat is amazing because it comes with all sorts of different waveforms that you can use. So I used Complex 2, and then I also used Scratch Pattern 7 and Basic 10 right here. It's a really common thing that I've seen other chat metal producers use is Scratch Pattern 7 and Basic 10. For this one, the reason why it dips down is because it goes down 24 semitones. The pitch just brings it down. So yeah, and then I had the hi-hats, the snare, the kick, and the 808 all come together. Alright, so for now, let's, I'm not going to recreate every single thing just because it would take forever, and I want this to be like a short video. But yeah, so I'm going to go over the kicks now. Just kind of follow what I do here. This should be right. And then what I did is I selected everything, and you can do that by Control A, hold the Shift key down, and then drag it, if it would let me. There we go. And the next thing that I did, this is something easy to do, is just copy the kick pattern and then paste it on your 808. So it has the same exact pattern, and then from there is when you can kind of play around and manipulate the 808. But before we get into that, I already have this tuned, but I'm just going to go over it with you guys. So always tune your 808s, right click and hit edit, and then you go to this little tag right here. Go to detect pitch regions, and then it tells you that the root note is at E2. So you go to here to your little piano, and then it'll be set, the default is C5, but you want it at E2. So you find E2, which is right here. You right click, whoops, I did it wrong. E2, there, now the root note is correct. If you mess up, just hit reset, and then just do it again. Another thing that I did is I turned the delay, the attack, the decay, the sustain, the release all the way down to 0, and I increase the hold to 100%. And what that does is when the bass, when the 808s are not being played, there's no excess just like sub frequencies playing. So it's just kind of clean. It just stops, and it just stops. There's no kind of decay. So yeah, what we're gonna do with the 808 is hit Alt L, and what that does, it just makes the notes longer. So obviously this is not in tune. So I'm gonna bring it down to G. So I brought that down 2 octaves. So now it's in tune. So now we can kind of start playing around with it. So what I did, so from this point you can just move the notes wherever you kind of want it to be. But of course, you want it to be in key so it doesn't sound like it's off. Just follow along what I do. I think I brought this down to D. This goes to an A. This goes to this goes down to a G. Let's go to a 3rd beat, and I want to put C right or C right here. I want to add a slide right here. Double click and then hit this little triangle. That's the slide effect. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is distort the sound. So what I'm going to do is highlight these so that they're both green. Go to your mixer, channel routing, route selected channels for this track. And then for the 808, this is where I go into distortion. So different ways you can go about this. The most common is Camel Crusher. It's a free plugin for distortion. It has these really cool presets, and you can just kind of play around with it, and it's really helpful. If you don't have Camel Crusher, and this is what I did before I started using Camel Crusher. I started using Camel Crusher because Kill Fargo, one of my friends who I produced a track called Possessed with him, and he's produced for Scarlord. He did The Purge, but he was telling me that he used Camel Crusher, and then I started using Camel Crusher. But before that, I used Pretty Fast Distortion. So basically, the threshold I brought for the threshold, when it starts bending, that's when you start to get that really gritty sound. Another way you can do this is with Fruity Blood Overdrive. So you can just kind of play around with those. Another one is Fruity Wave Shaper. And if I get right here, put a point right here. See how it just starts to distort the sound. So those are other ways that you can do it. But I like using Camel Crusher just because it's simple and there's presets. So another thing about distortion, because I feel like a lot of people don't know the definition of it. Basically, what it is when the gain is increased to the point where it starts clipping, and when it starts clipping, at that point, it's exceeded the maximum that it can possibly go. And that's when the waveform, the tops of the waveforms just get cut off. They're just like sheared off. And then that leads to inharmonics, changes in the tonal quality of the sound. And that's what creates that really fuzzy, gritty sound, is because the sound is clipping and because the gain has been increased so much. And I think I have a picture here. Yes, so this describes what I was talking about, is the top of the waveform just gets chopped off when it's being clipped, when the signal starts clipping. That's what happens. That's how you get that sound. And then this is kind of another visual. This is the original. It's a sine wave. And then with the hard clipping, it just turns like this. It just gets compressed. It just gets squashed. And like the tops just get chopped off. And that's how you get that really distorted, gritty sound. Distortion was developed in the 1960s and mostly for rock music. And it was used in guitar, distortion pedals, guitar amps. That's how distortion started kind of being developed. And then people started adding it to 808s and trap music and hip hop and rap. And that's why we use it today. So, but it all originated from the 1960s and the blues and rock and all that cool stuff. But anyways, so let's finish off with this 808 bass line that I have. So what we're going to do is just delete these excess notes. We don't need those. And then we're just going to copy this over 4 times. And on the 4th time, I'm going to change it up a little bit and bring these 2 up. Okay, so that is the bass line for Take Me right there. It's I think it's like, yeah, it's pretty exact. If we go to the original, I'll show you exactly. Slide just because it kind of like makes you lift up, like feel like you're being like sucked into the next note. So yeah, we have that. I think the next thing, because I already went over the ARP, is probably the hi-hats. I like to use closed hi-hats just because the frequencies are kind of more subdued. Actually, what I'm going to do is use Fruity Love Filter just because they have a resonance option. So it kind of makes the tonal quality a little bit more crisper. So what I'm going to do is fill each 2 steps. That's how I usually start off my hi-hats, is I just go to the simple fill each 2 steps, and then from there I just kind of like play around with it. But what I did for Take Me, if I can remember, it was in 3rd beat. Yeah, so it's 3rd beat. Da, 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 da. Sweet, okay. Delete these notes, and then highlight these, and copy those over. And then these, delete those, and then just start new. Let's do... I'm going to do half step or 3rd step. Good. Okay. So that is literally it. It's super simple and it just repeats. Simple, done. The crash. So I like to use the crash just because it makes it sound more metallic. Alright, and the next thing that I had is a snare. Really simple. Just easy. So yeah, let's go back to the original and just see what I did here. But yeah, for the snare I had 2 together. Just to make it more unique. And then for the crash I had 3 actually. Just like that. But yeah, so that's what I had. And I had the ARP over it. So yeah, the next part was the downfall, and then I already talked about how I manipulated the waveforms with gross beat, and then I had this kind of cool sound. It's the same chord progression as the beginning, so that's another easy thing that you can do, is just copy the same chord progression and have a different sound, so you don't have to be doing different chord progressions all the time. You can use the same one. And I use Transitor Head. It's this free plugin. I have a lot of free plugins that I use. So I had that kind of cool, creepy doll sound. And then I had this vocal of this girl. And what I did with that is I used Melodyne. I don't have Melodyne activated on my iMac. I have it on my laptop. But basically what I did is I transferred notes to it, and then I just kind of like moved the notes around and then made this kind of cool girl alien sound. So I like that just because it made it more EDM and like future bass sounding, and I've never really heard of a future bass trap metal, like Screamo trap. Like, people just don't do that. It's just like weird, and I like to do weird stuff. But yeah, so basically I think we're honestly done with everything. The last thing I'm going to go over is the ending, and this may look overwhelming to you, but literally all I did was I just chopped everything up, and I took certain elements out at certain times just so it felt like you're being sucked into the music. How you add drama, is by taking out certain elements, bringing them back in. That's how you add tension. Another great way of adding tension is doing automation clips on cutoff frequency, just like with the hi-hats. So I slowly built up the hi-hats, and then you can kind of hear them just come right in, boom, right into the next drop. So yeah, we went over how to do the really crazy bass lines, and the trick is doing it on your kicks, then copying the exact pattern straight into your 808, then making sure you tune the 808, find the right octave that it's in, the right key, and then from that line you just kind of move the notes around so that it obviously sounds good and it's in the right key, but you move it around. You can add different slides just so that it, you know, sounds kind of cool, and then you add your percussion elements and everything. I didn't add the ARP here just because I already showed you here. I'll show you guys again. Where is it? It's the main melody. So that follows the F sharp minor scale, and for some reason in rap and Screamo trap, minor scales are used a lot just because it sounds so dark and just kind of eerie and spooky. What else? Oh, in terms of distorting the whole entire track, I feel like this is the key to it, because I feel like most people don't really know what they're doing, and they just distort the entire track so much to the point where it's so compressed the track doesn't breathe. Yes, you're distorting everything and you have it on the master track, but like, don't do it so much to the point where it's just so compressed that it's like flat. You want it to still breathe. That's what I made sure with Take Me, because I mixed and mastered this track. I wanted Hani's vocals to still kind of breathe, and so you could hear them so that they were kind of like on top, not on top of the mix, but kind of a little bit back and on top of the mix, not like below the mix, because I didn't want everything, all the instrumentation to overpower his voice. I want his voice to kind of be more powerful, and everything to be in the background but placed strategically when I mixed it in Pro Tools so that you could hear everything. I hope I kind of taught you guys something. If you haven't checked out the video for Take Me, I would highly suggest looking at it. It's super cool. The track is on my Spotify, and then I have all my social media info here, and I'll also have it down below. I have an Instagram that you can message me at, and if you have any questions on anything, or if anything was confusing, be free to DM me, and I'm a really reachable person. I always message people back. Peace out, guys. I hope you liked this, and until next time.